It's Tribeca Spotlight time. On today's show, I'm talking to Rex Glensy and Asad Moghal about their TV show Patterns, just in time for Pride Month. They're showing an episode at the Tribeca Film Festival called Kevin's Series of Unfortunate Events, and it is wonderful. It's hilarious and romantic and delightfully campy, and I just really liked it. There are two seasons of the show, and it's a loosely connected anthology. Each episode tells a standalone story, but you'll find some characters appear in multiple episodes. It's like a whole gay cinematic universe. This turned out to be a really fun interview. I hope you like it, and if you do, like and subscribe and leave a comment. The more popular the channel gets, the more self esteem I have. First of all, so funny. Thought it was really good, and I watched the first five of the eight, and I wasn't able to watch the last three before I had to go to sleep. But I watched a lot of it.
Thank you. I mean, that's to be honest, that's the only thing we really want to hear that the humor translates. So when you're writing, these jokes make sense in your head, but you're like, do they actually make sense to anyone that's not me or someone I'm paying? Does it make sense to like anyone else? And the fact that it does, great. Thank you.
Well, I guess that can go into kind of my first question, which is for people who don't know or don't understand camp. Um,
Mhm.
can you walk us through a little bit of not, I don't need a history lesson, but maybe your history with camp, as well as um the desire to make a new campy gay show.
Thank you. And thank you for asking for a history lesson because I don't have my PowerPoint deck on me right now. So happy to talk you through our history instead. I think the idea of camp humor is something which is also so intrinsically twinned with the British sensibilities as well. So when you look at kind of our sitcoms, the best way I can describe camp is it's taking things which are almost surreal, over the top, and finding the humor in it, and looking at like how can I look at this in a different kind of perspective. The best things I can think of which are overtly camp are shows like um absolutely fabulous. The Golden Girls is very camp. Even The Simpsons and South Park have very camp elements where even if we don't necessarily think of it. So it's that surrealist sense of humor. It's that kind of taking something stupid and actually finding the sensible, smart, and the interesting humor in it. It's almost looking at things from a fresh perspective. I was a child raised on all these shows. So, I mean, for example, The Golden Girls, I watch it every lunchtime. It's my kind of go-to thing when I'm having a full-on stressful day. And to me, it was I want to make my own version of something where my sense of humor comes out and where people can relate to all those issues. So whether it's LGBTQ issues, it's issues around family, it's issues around relationships, it's even issues about two old women wanting to murder their best friend. That kind of element, I want to find the humor in that and kind of make it relatable to the audience.
So Rex, can you talk a little bit about directing that? I wonder what the interplay is. Do you get the script and you go, how pun not intended, how straight do I want to shoot this? Uh or did you ever have a daily and then Assad's just like, that is not the tone that I wanted, or vice versa?
That's an excellent question. So I'll start with just one tiny little anecdote. I've only rejected one treatment that Assad gave me for an episode as me thinking, no, this isn't going to work. Tone is wrong. It's not going to be funny. Everything else, the way it works is generally the idea actually comes from Assad. There are a few episodes where the idea was mine or actually someone else's as well. In Patterns, there are a couple of episodes where the original idea was neither mine nor Assad's, but it was another one of our producers, Kenneth Carter's idea. And then Assad goes ahead and writes the first draft with one exception. It's an episode you haven't seen yet, episode 7. I actually wrote the first draft. But every single other episode, Assad goes ahead, writes the first draft, and then, to be honest, Assad, you should cover your ears now. I get handed these glorious scripts, and what you see on screen is either a slightly modified first draft or a second draft, but not beyond that. Asad is so efficient, and his writing is so beautiful and funny that at the script stage, I really am not required to do very much. Then when it comes to the director's stage, which is the second part of your question, yes, my usual take is, let's do this straight. Like I don't want to get in the way of what are these beautiful scripts, which are very funny on their own. And the only thing I do is, after doing a take, I have to make an immediate decision as whether I think it's funny or not, or whether it works in different ways or not. And sometimes you don't actually know that until you just see it. It's, things that can look great in theory don't look so great, and then it's a matter of changing angles, or calling up Asad quickly and saying, "Can you give me a different line for this?" Because just so you know, Asad hates coming on script, so he's on set, so he's never there. He has to be contacted from the famous remote location. But generally speaking, my job is not to get in the way, and really to play the scripts as written. Yes, allowing actors to improv and add their own, but not too much, because then I have to deal with an angry writer, and I'd rather not have to deal with that.
Yeah, and also I would say, as a writer, you also almost have to divorce yourself from it. It's almost like it's your baby, but you've had the baby, now the baby's at school, and you have to let the teachers deal with your child. If they're punishing your child or whatever, you have to like leave them and let them do it. So I have to be happy with the script as a final version. And to me, as long as I'm happy with that, then whatever happens with the rest of it, kind of let it go.
So that's interesting, Asad. I've never heard of you talking this up as if your children have been punished. That's
Yeah,
that's
well, there you go. There you go. I won't say which child, but there you go.
Is that why you'd rather not be on the set, because you feel like you would get in the way of the production side of it?
Yeah, I'm like, why is that actor beating up my child? No, not really. But it's just also, I find personally sets a lot of dead space, and I can't deal with so much dead space. So I'm just like, I can't do this.
Back to one.
Exactly. I need to like go and do something.
Sure. I love the idea of this like loosely interconnected world that you create. When you're writing and assembling that, is it like a cork board with photographs and red string connecting everything, or is it as simple as like, oh, it'd be cool if this guy showed up in this one, and
you
then you kind of
I
worry about the continuity later?
you really looked at the episodes in detail with the board and the red string. That's great, Asad. But that's more your
yeah,
yeah.
I really wish I was that interesting to be like almost Memento style with those kind of different bits and pieces there. Unfortunately, I'm a very sad, boring human being, and so my go-to is actually an Excel spreadsheet. And so I'll have a character, location, what they got up to, etc., etc. And then what I'll do is I will basically then see, okay, what happens with this character, where can we place him, what feels right for the character, because for me it's got to be the character driving driving the narrative, and not the narrative driving the character. When that happens, it feels all inauthentic, and it just feels wrong. And the other aspect for me is, I think most writers were frustrated actors who just don't actually have any acting ability. And so I will basically be acting out all the scripts before I even start to write them. So I don't even get to writing down the dialogue, etc., until I've started to speak to them, and I have all these different characters living in my head, and I'll have all these different voices that come out. Once the dialogue feels natural, that's when I'll start to do that. And then I'll go through the spreadsheet to make sure that everything is correct. I'm very much a nerd when it comes to this writing aspect of it all.
Now, the episode that is the focus of this whole thing, Kevin's series of unfortunate events. Well, first off, before we even get into it, you can pass. But what was your worst first date?
Oh, well, you have seen them. All of those ones are based on my own history. So I would say, audience, you choose.
Okay.
Any of those.
I'm trying to, Assad and I sort of have a repartee here in that uh, uh, my dating life really doesn't have, unfortunately, any, well, or actually in my case, fortunately, doesn't have any of those. So I'm trying to think. Yes, I can tell you one, but it's a rather banal one. It's the classic catfish when someone shows up and they are 20 years older than the picture that they sent. Uh, um, and it's one that is quite typical, actually, obviously nowadays. That it's not a complete catfish in that it's a different person who was in the picture. Here it was definitely the same person, but it was them. 2 decades earlier. It actually turned out to be a rather pleasant cocktail in the end. The person turned out to be very, very nice, but I just couldn't get over the fact that he had lied. And that was sort of, it ended up just being like that, even though the date itself was relatively pleasant. But I'm afraid that's the worst story I can tell as far as my dating life is concerned. Sorry, Assad.
That's fine. I suffer for everyone.
Yeah, I guess in today's anytime I see someone with where their first photo is like the yassified Instagram style, it's like that's an instant deal breaker.
Oh, fair. Fully fair.
Um, so I just poor Kevin, I just want to give him a hug. Tell me about getting Jake, way back when you started. And I suppose did you see yourself as a version of that character, or did you kind of take your situations and apply them to this sweet naive boy who just wants to get laid without it being a big deal?
So
I'll talk about the seeing myself, and then you can talk about the process.
yes.
Um, I did not see myself in that way in any shape or form. Jake, I will say this brings a lovely kind of positivity and optimistic aspect to that. I'm dead inside as a human being. I'm very pessimistic. So that is not me in any shape or form. But I think actually the way that Jake played it is far more empathetic for the audience. So fully supportive of that. But yeah, definitely Jake and I and Kevin on screen is definitely not me.
So as far as the process, um, Patton's origins were shot first, and then Patton's was shot afterwards. So we had an open casting call for the character of Kevin, um, and Jake applied for it, and sent us a self tape, which was excellent. The live audition. I mean, he was our favorite the moment we got the self tape. We saw he has that vulnerability. It's his performance is multi-layered, and that's what we love. There is actually more complexity to Kevin than meets the eye, particularly when you've seen, and you haven't gotten to them yet, but there are two other episodes in Patterns, episode 6 and 8, where he appears again. And you'll see he has wide range, and he really is a really fantastic actor. And so for us, casting him was actually easy. We just felt very lucky we got him through a casting call as opposed to going through a casting director. When we then shot Patton's, not Origins, the Patton's, then we went through a casting director and all that. But of course, Jake had already been cast because we'd shot him first. And you'll find that those characters whom we then base whole episodes on, it's because we thought they did a great job when they first did their whatever episode they were in previously. And so that's sort of one of the ways that we dictated who we then concentrate on. It's either we like the actor or we think they did a great job. Usually it's both. It was
Yeah.
a great actor who's also a great person who we enjoyed working with.
And as a writer, you get inspired by good actors as well because you start like, oh, I know their range, I know what they can do, so I can get this character in this way. Because for example, Kevin's series Unfortunate Events wasn't actually originally written for that character, but then I was writing, I was like, actually, this is better suited to Jake's ability as a brilliant actor, and it makes sense for it to be for this character instead. So I I'm not going to tell him to his face. Hopefully, he won't watch this. Maybe he will. But I found him quite inspiring as an actor. So I really wanted to write for him.
I mean, that's a fantastic point. How this episode was originally written for. So the first draft, it's not even Kevin,
It's a
and
character who will remain nameless.
it's one of the other characters. We won't say who it was, and then Asad. I read it, and we both almost at the same time said, I don't think it works for this character, but it will definitely work for Kevin. And so for the second draft, essentially, the only change was the name of the character. The lines stayed exactly the same, and then we got from Jake what you saw, which is, I think, fantastic.
Yeah, it is truly a spectacular performance, and tremendously well written. Really great episode. I mean, he's so sweet and naive and well-meaning, but still, horny like anyone would be. And in this, R-rated kind of mature show that you have, but that's still like a jolly tap dancing comedy. It feels like an updated version of almost like a 60s kind of sitcom vibe, like That Girl.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where my sensibilities lie as a writer. I do have an ambition for a very 60s style sitcom as well, which if that comes to fruition, I will share that with you. But really, that 60s thing is what drives me.
I'm waiting for your Gidget reboot.
Yes. All I will say is mystery solving go-go dancers. That's the only thing I'm giving you.
Okay, I'll take it. So Assad and Rex, you two clearly have a marvelous rapport with one another. Tell me, did you meet on this project? How long have you known each other? What's your meet cute?
Okay, I love this question because you're gonna love the answer to this one. Asad and I are a real life couple.
Oh, I should have known that. I'm a terrible
Yeah.
interviewer.
Oh, it's fine. I don't think we've got it on the notes anywhere. So
Well, it's good that you have a good rapport then.
I can you imagine we hate each other. That's why we're at different cameras, because we just can't stand each other.
So we met, and this is the honest truth. We were years into our relationship before I even had any inkling that Asad wrote.
Yeah.
He knew what I was doing, but he never approached the subject. And I can tell you exactly how it began as far as the writing process. Is I had this idea during the pandemic. I remember exactly when it was. It was March of 2020 at what we call an end of the world party. It was just before the lockdowns happened in Los Angeles. I was actually at the home of one of our producers, Kenneth Carter, who's involved in the project as well. It was his birthday party, in fact. And that's where I had an idea of making a series of short films. And at that point, they were not so connected. It was just an anthology. The only thing I had was anthology comedy, because other than the 70s show Love American Style, I could not remember at the top of my head an anthology comedy series. There are anthologies sort of in the Twilight Zone, Black Mirror type of anthologies, but none of that. So I thought, what a great idea it would be. It hasn't been done for a long time. It's certainly not new, but it hasn't been done in a long time. And it wouldn't be a sketch show. It would actually be, so I finally get back to London, and I say, okay, I'm going to write the first 2 episodes. So, and this would be of Patton's origins. So I write the first 2 episodes. I have Asad read them. And Asad, do you want to tell Zak what your comment was?
I will say it in the nicest possible way. I won't swear on this. I just said this was terrible.
No, you
okay,
can curse. No one gives a shit.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. This is shit, is what my response was. So just to give you my background in corporate communications, I've worked in corporate communication for like 15 years. So one of the first things you learn is how to write. And so I was like, well, this is just really bad writing. So Rex and I are both very petty. And so his response was, well, let's see what you can do. And so he gave me 24 hours, I think, basically to rewrite the entire thing. And again, you give me a challenge, I will make sure I come out on top. So I rewrote the thing. And I think you were a bit peeved that I actually did a better job You're like,
Yeah,
damn, well,
I had to reluctantly agree that he'd done a wildly better job. I mean, not just a better job, a much better job on the same ideas and the same characters than I had. So I said to him, "Okay, there are 6 more episodes to write. Get to it."
so
And
this is a series based on pettiness and wanting to outdo each other, which to me is the best way to start anything, really.
the one thing we learned though is that we can't write together.
No,
So it's a ping pong. So
yeah,
he would write something and deliver it to me, and I would do the edits or rewrites and deliver it back to him. It would never be that both of us were in front of a screen, because we tried that. It was a catastrophe.
no. Because I'm also very analytical. So before I write something down, I will think of every possibility I can think of instead of placing it there.
And I'm
So
very impulsive. So
he's
it's
very
like
impulsive. So while I'm like, okay, I just want the best thing down, Rex is, let's have everything written down and then see where we go from there. So we're both at the complete opposite ends of the spectrum. So we can't work together in that way.
but no one has asked us that question before.
Yes.
That's
So well done on picking all that up, by the way.
Thank you. Uh, so I suppose, Rex, when you're on the set and you're directing, it's like the buck stops with you, but you're also like the final. Well, I mean, there's editing and so much, afterwards. But tell me a little bit about preserving versus, interpreting and getting to put those final touches, and almost like your final say that you have on the set.
that's a fantastic question. I mean, honestly, my first reaction when we reach what we consider a shooting script, which, as you know, it's very early on in the process. There's not lots of drafts or anything like that. Is really to get out of the way. So one of my director inspirations is Clint Eastwood. I think that the way he directs his process, first of all, it's phenomenally confident for him. I'm nowhere nearly as confident as he is as a director, but the ability to know when to say stop early on, so you're not doing take after take after take. I think it's sort of one of the director's true gifts is to know when you've got the take, and not to be so focused on the minutia that you're doing 16 takes. So my process is, I get these scripts, they are wonderful. I need to stay out of the way. What I need to do is valorize the script that I have, as opposed to intervene on it. And that's what I've tried to do each time. So I'll just use one example, which is Kevin's Series of Unfortunate Events. My main concern as a director on that script is to make sure that it stayed funny. Because let's be honest, some of the situations can be very dangerous. And for some people, they have proven to be dangerous, if not lethal, sometimes. And if ever I crossed that line where you actually feel that the character is in real danger, that's not funny anymore. So my job was to make sure that line was never crossed. So we do have a take of the second date, where Dylan, who plays Giles, who's another fabulous actor, played it so intensely that I was scared. So I had to have a conversation with him and saying, Dylan, that was great. It's just not going to work, because I'm genuinely scared for the character, and we can't have the audience be tense up. We have to always keep it funny. So then he switched it immediately. It shows you what a great actor can do. So his tone changed, and therefore we kept it on the funny side of that line. And that was essentially my intent. But my intent generically with Asad's scripts is really play them as written, play them straight. I don't allow the actors to make too many changes, particularly in comedy, because comedy, as you know, it's very, very fine line for something that's funny and that isn't. And because I think Asad is so good at nailing that in the script as to where that line is, I feel that the easiest thing to do is to stick with that. Not to say that every now and then actors come up with things on their own which are as funny or even funnier, or have a different take on what the humor is. but generally speaking, it's essentially fantastic script. Rex, get out of the way.
Yeah, I think that's the Britishness of it is that it's very dialogue driven. The pitter patter rhythm of these exchanges goes a really long way. Um, it's a different episode, but there's like the Derek Jacobi episode. I felt like you could put music behind it, like it's almost like a
Yeah,
song.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, first of all, when we were told that he had accepted to do this, I mean, all of us had just sort of collapsed. Like, are you kidding? There is a very funny thing. So there is an outtake afterwards where I'm sitting with Derek on those two chairs and I'm just asking questions, and they were still filming. And so I said, "Well, Derek, why? What? Sorry for saying this, but why did you even accept this?" His response was, "Well, because you've paid."
Yeah.
Which I guess is fair enough. But no, I agree with you. I mean, Asad, you have a specific take on that episode, I know.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that episode, to me, I don't know if you're familiar with, there were two kind of like sources of inspiration. Well, three really. One was the VH1 Behind the Music was a massive inspiration, and I kind of wanted to pull there. Two, I don't know if you're familiar, and it's a very specific reference with this British cook from the 70s called Fanny Craddock. She's okay. Please go Google Fanny Craddock's Christmas specials and watch those on YouTube. You talk about camp, she is the epitome of camp. So the character of Maria is a cross between her and Liza Minnelli. Very specifically, the episode of Liza Minnelli selling her fashion wear on QVC. Those kind of reference points to me were really key to kind of bring across there. And Juliana did such a great job of doing that. And I made her go away and watch all of those as points of reference. But watch Fanny Craddock, and the episode will make even more sense.
Okay. Okay.
And by the way, you won't recover once you've seen
You
Fanny
won't.
Craddock. Trust me, you really won't recover.
It's my job to try and get Fanny Craddock to take over the US. So I'm trying to get everyone in the world to watch these amazing episodes.
By the way, considering that she passed away about 20 years ago, that's going to be a really, really interesting task.
We'll reanimate her.
I will be the tip of the spear for you.
Exactly.
Um, Speaking of Derek Jacobi and just like you're part of gay history now. This show. People are gonna watch this show and see themselves in the characters. Can you talk a little bit about um your inspirations? The first time maybe you saw a character on TV that you're like, oh, that person is me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the very first time I kind of saw that was so. My background is I'm British Youth African Asian, which is a very confusing ethnicity. So just to give you background, basically, my parents were born in Nairobi, Kenya, but my dad is of Indian origin and my mum is of Afghani origin, and that's a very specific ethnicity. I was born
I
in
don't
the
know if there's a
UK.
show about that.
There isn't a show about that, but also just seeing British Asians in general is very rare on television. So growing up, there was a sketch comedy show called Goodness Gracious Me, which was written by British Asians. And that I was about 8 or 9 when that first aired. And to me, that was, oh, we can do television, we can do comedy, we are allowed to be funny. And guess what? We're allowed to write our own experiences, and it's universal. So, for example, a lot of the humor is brought from my experiences as a gay man, but a lot of the humor is also brought from my experiences as an Asian person and as a person of color. But it's made in a universal way that everyone can relate to it. So you can see, for example, Vera, her way of basically finding out information very quickly from very little things. It's a very Asian thing to do. Trust me, you give an Asian woman one name, they will find out every information about this person. But we've all recognized people who do that. So to me, Goodness Gracious Me was the first time where I was myself.
I'm going to chip in and interrupt for a very specific reason for something that Asad just said. When we first met, I had only given him my first name. By the time we spoke 24 hours later, he knew exactly who I was. He had my CV I used to be a college professor. He even had the ratings that my students had given me that he found online. It was alarming.
That's also because that was my job to know stuff. Okay, so just putting that out there. That's also the reason why.
No. I was alarmed. I was thinking this guy has stalker written all over him. But sorry, I interrupted because I wanted to make the point of what you said. How you do that.
So we take away from that answer from my side is I'm stalker and I like goodness gracious me.
Sure.
Rex.
Rex.
So it was. So I started out life as a musician, as a classical musician.
What did you play?
So I was a piano player, but I was actually a young conductor, and I was actually starting to conduct orchestras when I was 16 and 17 years old. I was born and raised in Italy, so that's where that primarily took place. Then I came to the US, and I worked primarily in the Midwest. We're talking quite some while ago. I won't say exactly how long ago. This face doesn't betray its age.
None of my business.
So, and I mean, particularly growing up in the era I did, LGBT youth had to create their own heroes. We had none given to us. And being a classical musician, I latched on to two people who I knew were members of the LGBT community. One, of course, was Leonard Bernstein, and the other was the British composer Benjamin Britten. So it's not that I saw myself in those two, because these are great geniuses and these are at the very, very top of the pantheon of classical music. But again, it's what Asad said. It's people. It was like, oh, we do exist, and not only do we exist, we can reach the pinnacle of the profession, like these two giants of classical music did. So it's not like I sort of identified in them, but it was more like I felt safety in their proximity, if that makes any sense. I just felt, it was very important for mental health reasons to be able to have that, particularly as someone who from a relatively young age knew that they were members of I mean, why am I speaking the third person? I knew that I was a member of the LGBT community at a relatively early age. And so for me, that was a very important thing to be able to see. And then when I transitioned into the entertainment business, there, of course, it became much easier to find people to identify with, and particularly because it was years later, and it was sort of the floodgates had already if not completely opened, at least partially opened.
Yeah. I mean, that's wonderful. And now, you're making this show that, not to get political or anything, but, we live in a time where there are people trying to close those doors that you just mentioned. There's someone who's got to, put the bar up or whatever, the stick, so that the door won't close, and be like,
that's very important. I remember having a conversation about 6 or 7 years ago with a friend of mine about whether pride was still important and whether it was still necessary. And one of us was saying, well, you know what, we've achieved what we want to achieve. It's now just like a party. And I now, it's obviously still necessary. It seems to me, unfortunately, that this is going to be a never-ending battle. And if that's the way it is, so be it. So I completely agree with you. I think now with the attempts to cut back on victories that we've had, it's even more important to be alert to it.
Maybe I'm giving away my heterosexuality, but is Pride global? Is that just a US thing, or do they do it in...
It's global. It's Pride
Okay.
Month now as well in the UK and
So
Europe.
most Northern Hemisphere countries have a Pride Month in the summer. It's usually June, but it can also be July. And in the Southern Hemisphere, like in Australia, it's February. In New Zealand, it's it always coincides with the hotter months.
Coincidence. Weird how that works out.
Yes, I guess there's obviously practical and logistical reasons for that. Australia has this huge Mardi Gras, which is always in February, and that coincides with their Pride Month. But I would say in virtually all Western countries, if not all Western countries, there is a Pride Month at some point in the year.
Okay. Um, do you, I mean, you can pass if it's like too personal, but do you remember going to like your first like big Pride event since it is June, it's Pride month, and kind of finding your people? You know, like it's good to know that they're out there, knowing that they exist, but then actually getting to meet them and them accepting you into their group, you know, that's a big
No, no,
deal.
that's a great point. I'll answer first because for me it's very easy. When I moved to once I'd finished what I was doing in the Midwest, I actually moved to LA and lived in West Hollywood. And not only did I live in West Hollywood, I lived one block from where the Pride Parade went. And to me, what was exhilarating was how many people. Like this wasn't a parade with 6 people waving tiny pride flags. We're talking tens of thousands of people. It was like 7 or 8 people deep on the parade. So if you arrived too late, all you'd see was the back of the head of the person in front of you rather than the parade. So that for me was exhilarating. I was still quite young when that happened. And it was just a beautiful feeling of belonging somewhere.
Yeah, it was very different from me. I grew up in this lovely city called Derby, which wonderful. Go there, great sushi. But it's it's a city
Oh
of
yeah, sorry.
200.
Yes, on the great sushi. That's true.
Great, absolutely great sushi. It's a city of 250,000 people, so it's relatively small in terms of the city. Our Pride Parade would usually consist of some local person deciding they're going to do drag for the first time, and somebody who ended up 70th on X Factor 5 years ago. So very, very different. But also, when I went to school, we had openly gay students, and no, it wasn't much of an issue. So it was just pride was a wonderful thing, but it was inbuilt into the kind of fabric of the society of where I was growing up.
Mhm. So you've got patterns now, and it's 2 seasons. I mean, I don't know. I guess this whole thing is a way to get it, you know, picked up and attention and all that. So we'll see how that goes. My hopes are very high because it is wonderful, and I want so many people to watch it. I want all my friends to watch it. The gay ones and the straight ones, obviously. You know, the funny's funny.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And
I'm glad you
romantic is
said
romantic.
I'm glad you said
exactly.
that because what Assad, I mean, he can probably speak to this better than I can. We are aiming for this universality. As you've
Mm.
seen, for example, because you've seen episode 5 with the 2 women, there's no one gay in that. But it's so camp
Yeah.
that there is that well, Assad coined the term universal camp.
Yeah, and it really is that kind of aspect of taking that sensibilities, which has kind of traditionally sat with the gay community, but actually making it on a much wider scale. I mean, for example, the origins of that episode, The Two Ediths, to be honest, even the origins are really camp. We were driving through Kensington in London, and there was a street called Edith Terrace, and the street next to it was called Edith Crescent. And I was like, I bet those two are friends. I mean, what the hell? What was I thinking? The two streets are friends, and then suddenly this idea of them deciding to kill their friend because they were bored of her came up, and that's what universal camp is. It's the absurd, it's the stupid, but it's the humor within that.